Hi everyone. So I decided to write my paper about environmental issues with coral reefs. So to begin, with environmental issues such as global warming and pollution, it's no surprise to hear that coral reefs and the Great Barrier Reef are in great danger. According to coral reef biologist Dr. Dancy Knowlton, 1/4 of all ocean species depends on reefs for food and shelter. With that being said, it is a little scary to know that such a benefit to ourselves in the ocean is in such great danger. Before humans can learn how to save coral reefs, it is important to understand what coral reefs are and the benefits they carry prior to looking into the dangers of coral bleaching, overfishing, pollution, coral mining, and oxybenzone in sunscreen. And those are all the main topics that I'm going to cover too. So, for starters, I'm going to talk about coral reefs and what their purpose is. So, when you're looking at marine ecosystems, coral reefs are the most diverse. Corals are relative to the sea anemone, I think that's how you say it, meaning that they share the same structure of the polyp. The polyp opens up at one end, and its mouth is surrounded by a ring of tentacles. The tentacles have nemesis, which are stinging cells, and that allows the coral polyp to capture small organisms that swim too close by. To form a reef, a coral has to form a colony first, and then once a colony is formed, colonies can come together and make a reef. And the largest coral reef is the Great Barrier Reef, and that's on the coast of Australia, and it's 1,600 miles. It's believed that the Great Barrier Reef started growing around 20,000 years ago, and it's so big that you can even see it from space. But it takes a long time to grow a colony, and especially a coral reef. They grow really, really slow, and even the fastest growing corals only grow about 6 inches a year. And a typical coral only grows about 1 inch a year. And coral reefs grow more slowly because once a reef dies, they break into small pieces, and those pieces become compacted. But individual colonies can sometimes live for decades or centuries, and there's even some out there that have lived for more than 4,000 years. So corals and coral reefs serve a very large purpose to ocean and to humans. Like I said before, coral reefs are the most diverse ecosystem on the planet, and they have tons of functions. So some of their functions include protecting coastlines from damaging effects due to the wave action from tropical storms. They provide habitats and shelters for many marine organisms. They're also a source of nitrogen and other nutrients for marine food chains. They assist in carbon and nitrogen fixing, and they also help with nutrient recycling. So since it has so many functions, it's really not surprising that so many marine species decide to live in the reefs. But reefs also serve a very large purpose to us as well. They benefit humans by letting the fishing industry depend on them, since so many fish spawn in the reefs. It helps the economy, since the Great Barrier Reef generates more than $1.5 billion yearly for the Australian economy through fishing and tourism, and also by being useful to scientists to test climatic events over the past millions of years. It's kind of really sad to think about it that the coral reefs have all these benefits, but yet they're so greatly in danger. Coral reefs are dying all around the world, and one of their leading causes of death is the rising sea temperatures, which was also made worse from El Nino, the weather pattern, because it heated up the Pacific Ocean. Corals that are exposed to the warmer weather and the water temperatures for more than a month leads to coral bleaching. Coral bleaching is when corals expel the algae that lives inside them that provides them with food. When the algae is expelled, the corals turn white and can usually die. About 5% of the world's coral could be lost to coral bleaching alone this year. Coral bleaching has only been seen around the Solomon Islands, Hawaii in the Pacific, and the Maldives in the Indian Ocean. But coral bleaching affects the hundreds of millions of people who rely on coral reefs for their livelihoods and protection from storm surges. Overfishing is another major cause of why coral reefs are dying. Overfishing is a really destructive cycle, and I was reading an article about these coastal villagers in the Philippines that started stripping nearshore reefs. They took giant clams, groupers, and other large fish, and then they just stripped tons of other creatures, and then they also took dynamite and they would blast out the reefs. So they destroyed the reefs and they would kill the fish that were in it and take the fish. And if they weren't dead, they would also stun them with cyanide so that they'd still be alive, so that they could sell the fish on the market and give them to Chinese restaurants to put in tanks. So it's kind of like when you go to Red Lobster and you got the live lobsters in the tank. They do that with fish, and these Philippine coastliners would do this to make a profit, essentially. And now about 90% of the reefs on that coastline, so about 13,000 miles, is dead or deteriorating from this. Another big threat to the coral reefs is pollution. Coral reefs, along with many other creatures, need clean water to survive. When sediment and pollutants such as urban and industrial waste, sewage, agrochemicals, oil, coral reefs get smothered and they die. Pollutants in the water also make algae grow a lot faster, and that can also make the water quality a little bit worse. And it makes coral reefs more susceptible to disease, slows down the growth and reproduction, and it causes severe changes in the food structure of the reef. Coral mining is another big threat to the reefs. Coral mining is when live coral is removed from the reefs and is used to benefit humans in the making of items such as bricks, road fill, and cement. Sometimes even too, when the coral is mined, it's used for souvenirs and shops. It's really too bad that there is such a demand for coral rock, especially in the construction industry, and that's more so focused in the Maldives. At the current rate of coral consumption, it is estimated that the supply of living coral rock will be exhausted within the next 30 years. So far, with all the coral that's been mined, the recovery rate within the last 10 years has been very minimal, which suggests that the recovery time can take about 50 years before they reach their former state. And with all the coral mining too, coral reef fish, so fish that live in those reefs, are greatly reduced, and some are even completely absent. And then with sunscreen being a threat, it's mostly just a certain chemical called oxybenzone, which is also known as BP3, and it's found in more than 3,500 sunscreen products worldwide. What the oxybenzone does is it pollutes the reefs. And oxybenzone is also found in wastewater discharges and sewage outfalls. And it also, what it does is it causes deformities to the reefs. It damages their DNAs, and it acts as an endocrine distributor. So what it does is it causes the coral to encase itself in its own skeleton, which will lead to their death. So those are a lot of factors that are causing the coral reefs to die. But if society takes a stand to protect the coral reefs, we can help save them. I found a really cool quote from a lady from Time magazine. Her name is Madeline J. Nash, and she said, "Once the coral reefs of the Caribbean all shimmered with life. Herds of iridescent parrotfish darted through forests of branching corals. Spiny lobsters lurked in crevices, while squid, spooked by shadows, dissolved into clouds of ink. But now, many of these bustling underwater habitats are taking a beating," which is very true. But if we all work together, we can really help to bring back the coral reefs, and we can do that by, according to Manfrino, rethinking the future, which is a good start. If we rethink the future, we should stop overfishing. But I know that's going to be hard because a lot of people have a hard time changing their habits, especially if they're making a profit. We could start restoring coral by doing coral restoration, and you can also transplant coral. It does take a lot slower, but it is a possibility since coral does take quite a bit of time. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce and the National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration, they had a top 10 list of what we can do to help stop killing coral reefs. And one is, don't give coral as a gift, think of it as a gift. And meaning, like, don't buy coral from gift shops. Like, don't pick it up, don't pull it out of the ocean and give it as a gift. Coral is a gift itself. It benefits us and the ocean. Stop coral mining. Conserving water will help coral repopulate. So if we're a little more conservative with our water usage, that will help with the corals. So by being an informed consumer is a good place to start. And also volunteering. Volunteer at a local beach, participate in beach cleanups, and get involved in protecting a local watershed. So that's if you don't live by the ocean like us. But all in all, coral reefs and the Great Barrier Reef are in great danger, and they've significantly diminished over the years. Another quote I found is from Clive Wilkinson. He's a biologist, and he said, "Reefs are tough. You can hammer them with cyclones and they'll bounce right back. What they can't bounce back from is chronic, constant stress." And I think that's something we really need to focus on and get a grip on and start saving the reefs. So, with that being said, hopefully this will change the minds of some people and we can start saving the reefs. Thank you.